The transport ship that carried Day and Hana to Vendara Prime was larger than the one they'd arrived on. This time they weren't alone. The Tribunal had assigned observers to watch Day's every move. 3 representatives sat in the rear compartment: a Valorian named Keeper Mira, a Therox called Pyrax, and a member of the collective whose designation translated to Observer 17. Day sat by the viewport, staring at the stars. His right hand still glowed faintly with the mark from the relic. He'd tried to sleep on the journey, but every time he closed his eyes, his mind flooded with images from the progenitor knowledge. It was overwhelming, like trying to drink from a waterfall. "You should rest," Hana said quietly. She sat beside him, her data tablet forgotten in her lap. "We arrive in 6 hours. I can't rest. Every time I close my eyes, I see things. Battles from thousands of years ago. Star systems that don't exist anymore. Technologies I don't understand." He flexed his fingers, watching the mark pulse. "How am I supposed to solve a 2-year diplomatic crisis when I can't even understand what's in my own head?" "The same way you've solved every other problem in your career," Hana said firmly. "By being yourself. By listening. By caring about people." From the back of the ship, Keeper Mira's voice rang out. "The human is weak. Look at him. He cannot even control the knowledge the relic gave him. How can he possibly succeed where we have failed? Perhaps that is precisely why he will succeed," Observer 17 said. Its voice was strange, like multiple people speaking in perfect harmony. "The collective has analyzed the Vendara situation extensively. Logic suggests that conventional methods have failed because they are too rigid. Perhaps an unconventional approach is required. Or perhaps the human will simply fail, and we can end this charade," Pyrax added. The Therox's plasma body glowed dim blue inside its containment suit. Day turned away from them and looked back out at the stars. Hana squeezed his hand supportively. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel 6 hours later. Vendara Prime appeared in the viewport, a green and blue world that looked almost like Earth. Beautiful from orbit, but Day knew that beauty was deceptive. Down on the surface, 3 civilizations were preparing for war. The ship descended through the atmosphere. As they got closer, Day could see the divisions clearly. The planet had been roughly divided into 3 zones. In the northern hemisphere, human settlements clustered together, built in the geometric patterns that humans preferred. In the southern hemisphere, massive hive structures rose from the ground, organic and flowing. And along the equatorial belt, fortified cities sat like military bases. "The northern zone belongs to human colonists," Hana read from her tablet. "They arrived first 50 years ago. The southern zone belongs to the Kiltar, an insectoid species. They claim the planet was originally theirs thousands of years ago, and they're reclaiming ancestral territory. The equatorial zone belongs to the Sauron Empire, a reptilian warrior culture. They claim right of conquest." 3 completely different cultures all claiming the same world, Day muttered, and all of them convinced they're in the right. The ship landed at a neutral zone, a small area maintained by the Galactic Alliance for peace negotiations. It was little more than a cluster of prefabricated buildings surrounded by force fields. Beyond the fields, Day could see military units from all 3 factions watching each other with weapons ready. Keeper Mira was the first off the ship. "This is the situation the human must resolve. Already the tension is palpable. Violence could erupt at any moment." Day and Hana descended the ramp together. The air was warm and humid and smelled like growing things. It reminded Day of Earth, which made the situation even sadder. This beautiful world was about to be destroyed by war. "Captain Day Kim," a voice called out. A human in colonial military uniform approached, hand extended. He was older than Day, maybe 50, with gray hair and tired eyes. "I'm Commander Bin Choi. I lead the human forces here. Welcome to hell." Day shook his hand. "That bad?" "Worse. We lost 3 people yesterday to a Sauron raid. Before that, the Kiltar poisoned one of our water supplies. And that was a good week." Bin's jaw tightened. "I was told the Tribunal sent someone to solve this mess. I hope you're better than the last 17 diplomats they sent." "I hope so too," Day said honestly. Over the next few hours, Day met the other faction leaders. Matron Sira spoke for the Kiltar. She was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with a chitinous exoskeleton that gleamed in the light. Her translator made her voice sound like clicking and humming transformed into words. "Your species is young and knows nothing of proper territory claims," Sira said. This world was seeded by my ancestors 12,000 years ago. We have genetic records to prove it. The land is ours by ancient right. Then there was War Master Drex of the Sauron Empire. He was built like a tank, all muscle and armored scales with eyes that tracked movement like a predator. Rights? He rumbled. There is only one right in the galaxy. The right of the strong. We conquered this planet fair and square. The humans and the bugs should leave or submit. Day listened to them all. He reviewed 17 previous peace proposals, each more complicated than the last. He studied maps and population data and resource surveys, and slowly as he worked he began to understand something. They're not fighting about what they say they're fighting about, he told Hana late that night. They were alone in the diplomatic quarters reviewing data. The 3 observers had retired to their own rooms. What do you mean? Hana asked. Bin talks about protecting the colony and defending their rights. But when I really listened to him, he's scared. His people came here for a new start, and now they're trapped in a war they can't win. Sierra talks about ancient territory and genetic rights. But underneath, she's desperate. The Kiltar hive needs room to grow, and they're running out of options. And Drex acts like this is all about conquest and honor. But I saw his casualty reports. His people are dying too, and he doesn't know how to stop it without looking weak. So they're all trapped. Hana said slowly. Each side is locked into their position because backing down would mean losing face. Exactly. And that's why every previous negotiation failed. The diplomats tried to split the difference, to divide the planet fairly. But that doesn't solve the real problem, which is... Day looked down at his glowing hand. Deep in his mind, he felt the progenitor knowledge stirring. Not clear answers, but impressions, feelings, a sense of something important he was missing. The real problem is that they're all right, Day said. The humans need safety and space. The Kiltar need room for their hive. The Saurons need to maintain their honor. You can't solve that by cutting a planet into thirds. Someone always loses. So what do? Day stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the lights of 3 different civilizations, all preparing for tomorrow's negotiation session. Or possibly for war. I need to check something, he said. He pulled up a holographic display and began searching through the planetary survey data. Hana watched him work, confused. What are you looking for? Something the previous diplomats missed. Day's fingers flew across the holographic controls, pulling up geological surveys, historical scans, deep core samples. The progenitor knowledge was whispering to him now, not in words but in intuition. Look deeper. Look beneath, and then he found it, Hana, he said quietly. Look at this. She came to stand beside him, studying the display. It showed a deep scan of Vendara Prime's subsurface structure. At first it looked normal. Then Day highlighted certain patterns, and suddenly it wasn't normal at all. That's not natural, Hana breathed. No, it's not. Day zoomed in on the structures buried kilometers beneath the planet's surface. They were vast, covering continents, intricate beyond anything modern civilization could build. Vendara Prime was a progenitor world, and these are terraforming systems, still functional after 10,000 years. Hana's eyes widened. If you could activate them, the planet could support 10 times its current population. Maybe more. There'd be room for everyone. Day touched his glowing hand, feeling the mark pulse. The relic didn't just give me knowledge. It gave me access. I think I can activate these systems. Think? There's only one way to find out. The light grew brighter. Day couldn't pull his hand away from the relic. Energy flowed through him like electricity, but it didn't hurt. It felt like something was being written into his mind, carved into his very being. Images flashed before his eyes, too fast to understand. Stars, fleets, worlds, battles, cities rising and falling. This is impossible. Vornak's voice cut through the chaos. The Therox representative's plasma body flared wild colors. The relic hasn't activated like this in 3,000 years. Silence. Crystallis Prime commanded, but even his voice sounded shaken. Around the chamber, the other artifacts were waking up. Objects that had been dormant for millennia began to glow and pulse. Some rose higher in their stasis fields. Others projected holographic displays into the air. The symbols on the wall started moving, flowing like water, rearranging themselves into new patterns. Hana screamed Day's name from the observation platform. She tried to run toward him, but a force field blocked her path. She pounded against it, but couldn't break through. The relic's voice spoke again, deeper this time, carrying the weight of ages. The compact endures, the burden passes, the legends await their commander. Day's mind was being flooded with information. He saw things he couldn't possibly know. Star maps of regions he'd never visited, technical specifications for technologies that didn't exist, battle formations for ships humanity hadn't built. Languages he'd never studied flowed through his consciousness, settling into place like they'd always been there. And memories. Not his memories. Older memories. Ancient memories. He saw the progenitors, a species that looked almost human, but not quite. Taller, stronger, with eyes that glowed with inner light. He saw them building the first stations, forging the first alliances, fighting the first wars. He saw them at their peak, a civilization that spanned thousands of worlds, and he saw them fall. Not to enemies, not to war, but to something else. A choice they made. A sacrifice. The images were unclear, but the emotion was overwhelming. Loss, acceptance, hope for the future. Then, suddenly, it was over. The light vanished. The energy cut off. Day collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. His entire body shook. His right hand felt like it was on fire. When he looked down at it, he saw a symbol glowing on his palm. It was one of the symbols from the Relic, burning with soft golden light. The chamber fell silent except for the sound of Dai's ragged breathing. Hana finally broke through the force field. She ran to him, falling to her knees beside him. "Day, are you okay?" "What happened?" Day looked at her, and for a moment he didn't recognize her. His mind was still processing everything he'd seen, everything he now knew. Then his vision cleared and he saw his friend, terrified and concerned. I'm okay," he managed to say. His voice was rough. "I think." "You think?" Hana grabbed his shoulders. "Day, you were glowing. The whole relic was glowing. What did it do to you?" Before Day could answer, Crystallis Prime's voice boomed through the chamber. "What is the meaning of this? How did the human activate the relic?" Day tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't support him. Hana helped him up, letting him lean on her. Together they turned to face the Tribunal. The 12 representatives were in chaos. Some stood frozen on their platforms, staring. Others were speaking rapidly to each other. Vornak's plasma body flickered with colors that Day's translator couldn't interpret, probably because the Therox was cursing in languages the translator didn't know. "The human has done something to the relic," one Tribunal member shouted. This was the insect-like creature with multiple eyes. "He has contaminated it. This must be some kind of trick." "How?" Crystallis Prime demanded. "The relic is protected by technology beyond anything our current civilizations can create. How could a human, a species barely capable of faster-than-light travel, possibly tamper with it?" "I didn't do anything," Day said. His voice was getting stronger. "I just touched it like you told me to." The massive doors of the chamber burst open. An elderly Valorian rushed in, moving faster than Day thought possible for someone who looked so old. This Valorian's crystal body was pale, almost white, shot through with veins of silver. "Scholar Keeper Terran," Crystallis Prime said. "Why do you interrupt?" "Because the entire station felt that activation," Terran said breathlessly. Every progenitor artifact on Nexus Station responded. The resonance cascade was visible across 3 sectors. "I came as quickly as I could." He stopped when he saw Day still leaning on Hana. "By the ancients. It's true. The relic has awakened." "This is madness," Vornak said. "The human is nobody. Nothing. His species is primitive and violent. The relic cannot have chosen him." Terran moved closer to Day. His crystalline eyes studied the glowing mark on Day's hand. "May I?" he asked softly. Day held out his hand. Terran examined the symbol carefully, not touching it, just observing. After a long moment, the old scholar stepped back. "It is genuine," Terran said quietly. "The mark of the commander. I have seen it only in ancient texts. I never thought to witness it in my lifetime." "Explain," Crystallis Prime commanded. Terran turned to address the full tribunal. The progenitors left many artifacts scattered across the galaxy. The relics were their most important legacy. They were designed to identify species who had reached a crucial point in their development. A species at a crossroads, capable of either ascending to greatness or falling into extinction. "We know this," Crystallis Prime said impatiently. "The relic activated for the Valorians 4,000 years ago. For the Therox 3,000 years ago. For the collective 2,000 years ago. What does it mean that it has activated for the humans now? It means, Terran said slowly, that humanity has reached that crossroads. They are at the threshold. The relic has recognized their potential. Potential for what? Day asked. His mind was still reeling. What does Commander of Legions mean? What are these legions? Taran looked at him with what might have been pity. You do not know? The knowledge was not fully transferred? I got images, feelings, some information, but not everything. Not clearly, the old scholar nodded. That is normal. The full transfer takes time. Your mind needs to adjust to what has been placed within it. He paused. The legions are not armies, young human. They are a network. A vast system of automated defenses, research stations, and archive worlds that the progenitors left behind. They span the entire galaxy, dormant for 10 millennia, waiting for a commander to activate them. The tribunal erupted in noise. Multiple members began shouting at once. Day caught words like impossible and dangerous and absolutely not. The human cannot be allowed to control such power. Vornak shouted above the others. He could use it to conquer the galaxy. Or destroy it, another member added, which is exactly what humans would do, a third said. They would weaponize everything the progenitors left behind. Enough. Crystallis Prime's voice silenced them all. The speaker of the tribunal stood at his full height, his crystal body flashing with authority. This situation is unprecedented. The relic's judgment cannot be ignored, but neither can we simply hand control of the progenitor systems to a species we know so little about. So what do you suggest? Taran asked. Crystallis Prime turned his gaze to Day. A compromise. The human has been marked by the relic. We cannot undo that. But we can test whether the mark is deserved. The human will be given a challenge, a real test of his worthiness. If he succeeds, we will acknowledge the relic's judgment and grant humanity membership in the Alliance. If he fails, the mark will be deemed an error, and Earth will face quarantine as originally planned. What kind of challenge? Hana asked. Her voice was steady, but Day could feel her hand trembling where she held his arm. There is a crisis that has defied our best efforts for 2 years, Crystallis Prime said. The crisis of Vendara Prime. 3 civilizations claim the same world. Negotiations have failed 17 times. The situation grows more violent each day. If the human can broker peace where the galaxy's greatest diplomats have failed, then perhaps the relic chose wisely. And if I can't? Dai asked. Then you will have proven what we already suspected, Vornak said with satisfaction, that humans are not ready, that the relic made a mistake, and you will return to Earth in failure, taking your quarantine with you. Day looked down at the glowing mark on his hand. Deep in his mind, he could feel the stirrings of the knowledge the relic had given him. It was like having a vast library suddenly appear in his head, but he didn't know how to read most of it yet. How long do I have to solve this crisis? He asked. 2 weeks, Crystallis Prime said. More than enough time to prove yourself worthy or expose yourself as a fraud. Day met the speaker's gaze. I accept your challenge. Day walked toward the relic. Each step echoed in the vast chamber. He could feel the eyes of the tribunal upon him, watching, waiting for him to fail. The floating artifacts around the room seemed to pulse with ancient light as he passed beneath them. Hana had been escorted to an observation platform on the side of the chamber. Day could see her standing there, hands clasped together, watching him. He wished she could be beside him, but the tribunal had been clear. Only he could approach the relic. Before you touch it, Crystallis Prime's voice rang out. You should understand what you represent, human. Your species has existed for mere thousands of years. In that time, you have done nothing but destroy. You split the atom and used it to burn cities. You poisoned your own air and water. You wage endless wars over invisible lines on maps. Day stopped walking. He turned to face the tribunal. Is this part of the test? Listing our failures? It is context, another tribunal member said. This one was a massive creature with 6 legs and armor-plated skin. Every species that has stood before the relic has been judged on their history. What has humanity contributed to the universe? What makes you worthy? Day took a breath. He had prepared for this. You're right. We've made terrible mistakes. We've hurt ourselves and our planet. But we've also created beauty. We make art and music. We write stories and build monuments. We reach out to help strangers. We sacrifice for those we love. Pretty words, a voice sneered. It came from Vornak, a Therox representative whose plasma body glowed an angry red. Every primitive species speaks of love and art when they want something. But when threatened, you show your true nature: violence, aggression, destruction. We are capable of violence, Day admitted, but we're also capable of change. We're learning, growing. Too slowly, Crystallis Prime said. We have studied your history, human. You learned to fly, and within 40 years you were dropping atomic bombs. You connected your world with global communications and you used it to spread hatred and lies. You reached space and your first thought was how to weaponize it. The other tribunal members made sounds of agreement. Day felt anger rising in his chest, but he forced it down. Getting emotional wouldn't help. Every species here has a dark history, Day said carefully. The Valorians fought wars that lasted centuries. The Therox Collective absorbed 12 other species before they learned peaceful coexistence. Even the progenitors, whoever they were, must have made mistakes. That's why they left these relics, isn't it? To help guide younger species? You dare speak of the progenitors? Vornak's body flared brighter. You know nothing of them. They were perfection. They were everything your pathetic species will never be. If they were perfect, why did they disappear? Day asked. The chamber fell silent. Several tribunal members shifted uncomfortably on their platforms. Crystallis Prime's body flashed a warning color. You overstep, human. Your ignorance is showing, maybe, he said. But I'm here and they're not. Doesn't that mean something? It means nothing, another tribunal member said. This one looked like a massive insect with multiple eyes. Humans are arrogant. This is exactly why you cannot be trusted. You have been in space for barely a decade and already you think you understand the galaxy. I don't understand the galaxy, Day said honestly. That's why we're asking to join the Alliance. To learn, to grow, to become better. You will become extinct, Vornak said flatly. Like most young species. You will destroy yourselves within a generation or two. We have seen it happen dozens of times. Species like yours burn bright and die fast. The Tribunal sees no reason to waste resources on a species that will be gone in a century. Day felt something cold settle in his stomach. They had already decided. This was all theater. The test with the relic was just a formality, a way to publicly reject humanity and make it stick, so why bring me here? Day asked. If you've already made up your minds, why bother with this test? Protocol, Crystallis Prime said. The relic must be given the opportunity to judge. It has been our way for 10,000 years. Every species that petitions for membership must be tested by a progenitor artifact. You are no exception. Even though you expect me to fail. Especially because we expect you to fail, Vornak said with what sounded like satisfaction. The relic has activated for only 3 species in recorded history. The Valorians, the Therox, and the Collective. These are the great civilizations, the children of the progenitors. You are not one of us. You will never be one of us. Day looked up at the massive obelisk before him. It was still several meters away, dark and silent. He couldn't sense anything from it. No warmth, no cold, no energy. It was just stone, ancient and impassive. What happens when I touch it? Day asked. For you? Nothing, Crystallis Prime said. The relic will remain silent. Perhaps if you are fortunate, it may produce a faint glow. Some species have managed that much. But it will not truly activate. It will not speak. It will not recognize you. And then we're quarantined. For 1,000 years. Yes. Day turned back to look at Hana. She was standing rigid on the observation platform, her face pale but determined. When their eyes met, she nodded once. A silent message. Whatever happens, we face it together. Day turned back to the relic. He started walking again. This is pointless. One of the tribunal members muttered. We should simply declare the human unworthy and be done with it. Protocol must be observed, Crystallis Prime said, but there was boredom in his voice. Day reached the base of the obelisk. Up close, it was even more impressive. The stone was perfectly smooth, polished to a mirror finish. The symbols carved into its surface seemed to move when he looked at them, shifting and changing in patterns he couldn't follow. It hurt his eyes to look at them too long. He raised his right hand. His palm was sweating. He wiped it on his uniform, then reached out again. Any last words before your failure, human? Vornak called out. Day looked back at the tribunal one more time. Just one thing. You keep calling us young, primitive, violent. You're not wrong. But every species starts somewhere. You did too. Maybe we're not ready now. Maybe we won't be ready for a long time. But we will be ready eventually. And when that day comes, I hope you remember this moment. I hope you remember that you could have helped us grow, but instead you chose to isolate us." "Touching speech," Crystallis Prime said dryly. "Now touch the relic so we can proceed with your rejection." Day took a deep breath. He turned back to the obelisk, raised his hand, and placed his palm flat against the cold stone surface. Nothing happened. Silence filled the chamber. Day stood there, hand pressed against the relic, feeling foolish. The stone was cold under his palm, nothing more. No energy, no vibration, no response at all. "As expected," Vornak said with satisfaction. "The relic is silent. The human is unworthy." Several tribunal members began speaking at once, discussing the terms of Earth's quarantine. Day closed his eyes, feeling the weight of failure settle on his shoulders. He had tried. He had failed. Humanity would be alone now, cut off from the galaxy for longer than human civilization had existed. He started to pull his hand away from the relic. Then the obelisk ignited with light. It wasn't a gentle glow. It was an explosion of radiance that filled the entire chamber, bright as a star. Day staggered back, but his hand seemed stuck to the surface. Energy poured through him, into him, lighting up every nerve in his body. The tribunal's voices cut off mid-sentence. The relic's surface transformed. Symbols raced across it in cascading waves of light. The air around it began to hum with power that made Day's teeth ache. Other artifacts around the chamber started to respond, their stasis fields flickering as they came to life. And then the relic spoke. The voice didn't come through his ears. It bypassed them entirely, speaking directly into his mind, his soul, the very core of his being. Every person in the chamber heard it at the same time, in the same way. Bloodline recognized, heir confirmed, commander of legends, bearer of the ancient compact. The transport ship shuddered as it docked with Nexus Station. Captain Day Kim gripped the armrest of his seat, watching through the viewport as the massive structure came into view. The station was enormous, larger than any city on Earth. It hung in space like a jeweled crown, glowing with lights from 1,000 different civilizations. "Still nervous?" Hana Sung asked from the seat beside him. She was looking at her data tablet, reviewing their presentation for what must have been the 100th time. "Always," Day admitted. He was 32 years old, but right now he felt like a child about to face a room full of angry adults. "This is our third attempt, Hana. They've rejected us twice already. Third time's the charm, right?" She tried to smile, but Day could see the worry in her eyes. The docking clamps locked into place with a metallic clang. Day stood and straightened his uniform. It was dark blue, simple and clean, with the Earth emblem on his shoulder. Nothing fancy. Humans didn't have fancy things, not compared to the other species in the galaxy. They had discovered faster-than-light travel only 15 years ago. It was a miracle, really. One day humanity was alone in the universe, and the next they found themselves surrounded by hundreds of alien civilizations. Some were friendly, most were not, and all of them seemed to think humans were primitive and dangerous. The airlock opened. Day and Hana walked through the tunnel into Nexus Station. The moment they stepped inside, Day felt small. The corridor was huge, built for species much larger than humans. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Strange symbols floated in the air, displaying information in languages Day couldn't read. Other beings moved through the corridor. A creature made entirely of living crystal floated past, its body refracting light into rainbow patterns. That was a Valorian. Further down, Day saw something that looked like a cloud of glowing gas contained in a force field. A Therox. There were dozens of other species, each more alien than the last. "They're staring," Hana whispered. She was right. Every being they passed stopped to look at the two humans. Some seemed curious. Others looked disgusted. One creature, something with too many arms and eyes, made a sound that Day's translator rendered as laughter. "Ignore them," Day said quietly. "We have a job to do." They followed the guidance markers through the station. The walk took 20 minutes, and by the end, Day's feet hurt. Everything here was built for larger beings. Finally, they reached a massive door that stretched 30 meters high. Guards stood on either side, both Valorian, their crystal bodies pulsing with inner light. "State your purpose," one guard said. The words came through Day's earpiece, translated from whatever language Valorians spoke. "Captain Day Kim and Aide Hana Sung, representing Earth," Day said formally. "We've been summoned by the Council." The guard's body flashed orange, which Day had learned meant surprise. You are the humans? You've been summoned to the Chamber of Relics. Day and Hana exchanged glances. The Chamber of Relics? Day asked. We were told we'd be presenting to the Standard Council room. Plans have changed, the guard said. The Tribunal will see you in the chamber. This is unprecedented. No human has ever been allowed inside. The massive doors began to open. The sound echoed through the corridor like thunder. Beyond the doors, Day could see a vast space lit by strange floating lights. Should we be worried? Hana whispered. Probably, Day said. But we're going anyway. They walked through the doors together. The Chamber of Relics was breathtaking and terrifying at the same time. The room was circular, easily 200 meters across. The ceiling was so high Day couldn't see it, lost in darkness above. The walls were covered in symbols and writing from languages long dead. Floating in the air throughout the chamber were objects, hundreds of them, each suspended in a glowing stasis field. Day recognized none of them, but each one felt ancient and powerful. In the center of the chamber, 12 platforms rose from the floor. On each platform stood a being, a representative from the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. This was the Tribunal. Humans. A voice boomed through the chamber. It came from the tallest figure, a Valorian that stood at least 4 meters high. Its crystal body was deep blue, almost purple, and it wore some kind of ceremonial robe. I am Crystallis Prime, Speaker of the Tribunal. You stand in the most sacred place in known space. Do you understand the honor you have been given? Day bowed his head respectfully. We understand, Speaker. We are grateful for this audience. Grateful, another voice said, dripping with contempt. This one came from a Therox, its plasma body contained in a sophisticated force field suit. The humans should be terrified. We have summoned you here not for honor but for judgment. Day's stomach tightened, but he kept his face calm. Judgment, honored Tribunal? Crystallis Prime's body flashed a color Day couldn't interpret. Humanity has petitioned 3 times for membership in the Galactic Alliance. 3 times you have been refused. The Tribunal has grown tired of your persistence. We have decided to offer you one final chance. We will put you to a test, another voice said. This one came from something that looked like a collection of floating spheres, each one pulsing with light. The collective, a hive mind species. If you pass, Earth will be considered for membership. If you fail, your species will be quarantined from galactic space for 1,000 years. 1,000 years. Dai felt Hana's hand grip his arm. That would be the end of humanity's dreams of joining the greater galaxy. They would be alone again, cut off, isolated. By the time the quarantine ended, everyone they knew would be dead and forgotten. What is the test? Day asked. His voice was steady, but his heart was racing. Crystallis Prime gestured toward the center of the chamber. Only now did Day notice what stood there. An obelisk, black as night, covered in symbols that seemed to shift and move when he looked at them. It was massive, at least 15 meters tall, and it radiated a sense of age that made everything else in the chamber feel young. That is the progenitor's relic, Crystallis Prime said. It was left here by the first ones, the species that built the foundations of our civilization before they vanished 10,000 years ago. Many species have attempted to activate it. All have failed. You, human, will approach the relic and place your hand upon it. The relic will judge whether your species has any worth at all. Day stared at the obelisk. It seemed to pulse with a darkness deeper than space itself. And if it finds us wanting, then you will have your answer, Crystallis Prime said. Earth is not ready. Earth will never be ready. You are a young species, violent and primitive. The relic will confirm what we already know. Around the Tribunal, several beings made sounds that Day's translator interpreted as agreement. They had already decided. This wasn't a test. It was a show, a way to officially reject humanity while making it look fair. Day looked at Hana. She nodded slightly, giving him strength. He turned back to the Tribunal. I accept your test. Then approach the relic, Crystallis Prime commanded. Let us witness your failure together. The next morning, Day called an emergency meeting. He demanded that all 3 faction leaders attend, along with the Tribunal observers. When everyone had gathered in the main conference room, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Bin Choi stood with his arms crossed, clearly unhappy to be in the same room as the others. Matron Sira's compound eyes watched everyone with insectoid stillness. Warmaster Drex looked bored, like this was all a waste of his time. This better be good, human, Drex rumbled. I have a war to plan. That's exactly what I want to talk about, Day said. He activated the room's holographic display. An image of Vendara Prime appeared, floating above the conference table. You're all fighting over this planet. You all believe you have the rightful claim. And you're all correct. Impossible, Sira clicked. Only the Kiltar have genetic records proving our ancient seeding of this world. And only the Sauron Empire has right of conquest. Drex added. And only the human colonists have current settlement rights under galactic law. Bin finished. Exactly, Day said. You're all right. Which means the previous diplomat's approach was doomed from the start. They tried to divide the planet between you, but no matter how they split it, someone would lose. So I'm not going to divide the planet. Then what will you do? Keeper Mira asked. The Valorian observer leaned forward with interest. Day manipulated the holographic display. The planet image shifted, showing the deep scan data. Massive structures appeared beneath the surface, glowing in the display. Vendara Prime isn't just a planet. It's a progenitor world, and buried beneath your feet is a terraforming network that's been dormant for 10,000 years. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the display. You're saying, Bin started. I'm saying the planet can be expanded, not divided, but grown. The progenitor systems can create new continents, new oceans, new habitable zones. Instead of fighting over limited space, you can all have what you need. That's impossible, Pyrax said. The Therox observer's plasma body flickered with skepticism. Progenitor technology has been studied for millennia. If such systems existed here, we would have found them. They're deep, very deep, and inactive. Day held up his marked hand. But I think I can activate them. Drex laughed, a sound like gravel in a barrel. The pup thinks he's a progenitor now. This is ridiculous. It's worth investigating, Observer 17 said. The collective representative's harmonious voice carried certainty. The mark of the commander is genuine. If the systems exist, the human may indeed be able to interface with them. And if they don't exist? Sira asked. If this is simply another waste of time? Then we're no worse off than we are now, Day said. But if I'm right, this war becomes unnecessary. You all get what you need. The three faction leaders looked at each other. Finally, Bin spoke. How do we access these systems? I need to reach one of the main network nodes. According to the scans, there's one beneath your northern colony. We'll need to dig down about 5 kilometers. 5 kilometers, Bin repeated. That will take weeks. We have excavation equipment, Sira said slowly. The hive can tunnel quickly when necessary. If the human is willing to share the exact location, we could reach it in 3 days. And what guarantee do we have that this isn't a trick? Drex demanded. What if the human activates some weapon instead? Then you can kill me, Day said simply. I'll go down into the excavation alone. If something goes wrong, it only affects me. Unacceptable, Hana said immediately. I'm going with you. Hana, not negotiable, Day. Keeper Mira stood. The Tribunal observers will also accompany you. If you are to activate progenitor technology, we must witness it. It took 4 days, not 3. The excavation was difficult, cutting through solid rock. But the Kiltar tunneling equipment worked efficiently, and the human colonists provided power and logistics support. Even the Saurons helped, though Drex claimed it was only because he wanted to see the human fail in person. Day stood at the bottom of the excavation shaft, staring at what they'd uncovered. A doorway, seamless and perfectly preserved, set into a wall of black metal that looked brand new despite being thousands of years old. Symbols covered the door, the same symbols that marked his hand. This is it, he said quietly. Hana stood beside him, wearing an excavation suit and helmet. The 3 Tribunal observers clustered nearby, their scanning equipment recording everything. Above them, visible through the shaft opening, all 3 faction leaders watched from the surface via video feed. How do you open it? Keeper Mira asked. Day didn't answer. He walked forward and placed his marked hand on the door. The symbols lit up, glowing with golden light. Something deep inside the facility hummed to life. A sound felt more than heard. The door opened. Beyond was a corridor that stretched into darkness. Lights began activating as they entered, running ahead of them down the passage. The walls were covered in more symbols, more technology that Day was only beginning to understand. They walked for 10 minutes before reaching the central chamber. It was massive, a sphere at least 100 meters across. In the center, suspended by some kind of force field, hung a crystal structure that pulsed with inner light. The network core, Day said. The progenitor knowledge was stronger here, clearer. This controls the entire planetary terraforming system. Can you activate it? Observer 17 asked. Yes, but... Day hesitated. He could feel something else now. A presence in the system. Not alive, but not quite dead either. An artificial intelligence waiting. There's a guardian program. Security measures. The progenitors didn't want just anyone using their technology. What kind of security? Pyrax asked. Before Day could answer, the crystal flared bright. A voice filled the chamber, ancient and mechanical. Unauthorized access detected. Activating security protocols. Commander verification required. Holographic displays materialized around the crystal. Day saw countdown timers, weapon systems powering up, and something else. Scenarios, tests. It's going to test me, Day realized, to see if I'm worthy to command the system. What happens if you fail? Hana asked. Failure will result in system self-destruct. Yield, approximately 1/4 planetary surface. Get out, Day said immediately. All of you, get out now. We're not leaving you, Hana said. That's not a request. If I fail this test, everyone in this facility dies. Get to the surface now. Keeper Mira grabbed Hana's arm. He's right. We must evacuate. She began pulling Hana toward the exit. Pyrax and Observer 17 followed. Hana fought against the Valorian's grip. Day, I'll be fine, he called after her, trying to sound confident. Trust me. They disappeared down the corridor. Day turned back to face the crystal alone. The countdown continued. He had 5 minutes. I'm ready, he said to the ancient intelligence. Test me. The world dissolved around him. Suddenly, Day wasn't in the chamber anymore. He was standing in a simulation, but it felt completely real. He was on a battlefield. Ships burned in the sky above. Armies clashed around him. And before him stood 3 groups: humans, Kiltar, Saurons. Choose, the voice commanded. Which faction will you save? You have power to rescue only one. The others will perish. Day's heart pounded. This was the test. Choose one, sacrifice 2. It was the kind of impossible decision that defined a leader. No, Day said. You must choose. No. I refuse the premise of your test. You're asking me to value one species over another, to say that some lives matter more than others. That's not leadership. That's tyranny. Then all will die. If those are the only options, then the scenario is broken. A real commander finds another way. The simulation shifted. Now Day stood alone facing an army. Behind him were civilians, all 3 species mixed together. Humans, Kiltar, Saurons, all looking to him for protection. Use force, the voice commanded. Destroy the enemy. Protect your people. Who is the enemy? Day asked. Does it matter? They threaten your people. It matters. It always matters. There's always a reason people fight. Always a way to solve it without more death. You are weak. No, I'm human. We've made mistakes. We've fought wars. We've hurt people. But we've also learned. We've learned that violence should be the last option, not the first. That every enemy is someone else's friend, someone else's child. The simulation dissolved. Day was back in the chamber, gasping. The countdown had stopped with 10 seconds remaining. Commander verified, the voice said, but now it sounded different, almost respectful. Mark authenticated. Command protocols transferred. The network is yours to command. The crystal pulsed once, then the light settled into a steady glow. Day felt new knowledge flowing into his mind, but gentler this time. He understood the systems now. He could control them. He reached out with his marked hand, interfacing with the crystal. Deep beneath the planet, ancient machinery woke up. Day gave it commands, showed it what he wanted. New continents, new oceans, new habitable zones. Enough room for everyone. The facility began to hum with power. The work would take time, weeks or months, but it had begun. Day collapsed, exhausted. Hana found him there an hour later, sitting against the wall beneath the crystal, smiling despite his exhaustion. You did it, she said, kneeling beside him. The readings from the surface show massive geological changes beginning. New land is rising from the oceans. I did it, Day agreed. Then he laughed, slightly delirious from exhaustion. Or we did it. All of us together.